I'm Davey Wavy, creator of Himeros.tv, and I'm joined by sex coach Finn Deerhart and tantric instructor Brad Amberhart. And today, we're talking about gay sex, and in particular, the tantric principles of tapas and spanda. So let's get started. Also, I lost my voice. Do I sound like a phone sex operator?
Better, yeah.
I
want to know how big the penis was to help you lose your voice.
Yeah, it totally obstructed my airways. It's like, hey, big boy. All right, maybe not. So anyway, Himeros Live is sponsored by Himeros.tv, the erotic website to enhance your experience of sex and sexuality. Created by Davey Wavy, we upload erotic videos to help you have better gay sex. And then we discuss them on this podcast. Go to himeros.tv/pod to save 20% off your membership, which is as little as 40 cents per day. You'll get instant access to our erotic library of life-changing, soul-nourishing, hole-quenching, cock-throbbing videos that inspire deeper connections, sexual exploration, and increased pleasure. Visit himeros.tv/pod and save 20%. Poof. Brad, it is so exciting to have you on the podcast.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah, for you and Finn, is this the first time that you guys have chatted together?
We chatted once via FaceTime a few weeks ago, and
a little bit via email.
Yeah.
Until
my next trip to San Francisco, and something mind-blowing will happen. Yeah.
Mind-blowing, soul-nourishing, hole-quenching, cock-throbbing.
Yeah, all of that.
All of that. Brad, since this is your first time on the podcast, for people at home, how would you describe what you do?
The best description I can give is that I lead men on journeys into ecstatic connection with their whole body. For a lot of us, our sex is in the realm of fantasy, or it's what we may have seen in porn. So I've been assisting guys ever since I was 23 years old, probably. I mean, long before I considered it a profession, I knew that something special was happening when I was in bed with men, and that I was able to travel. So I've been working ever since then for over 20 years to help more men access that space of travel. Like, we don't even need airplanes, really. I mean, people say in the future we're going to learn to do all those things we did with technology, and we can do them with our bodies. So I've been focusing on that for about 20 years now.
Yeah, what do you mean by travel when you say travel?
Altered consciousness.
Yeah. Well, it's like dreaming. You can dream when you're asleep, or you can dream when you're awake. And I like to dream when I'm having sex. I get to see all the beautiful places I've ever seen in the world. I get to revisit them. It's like it comes through me, and I see it like a film, but I also smell it and sense it, feel it with my body, as if I'm there. I really feel like I am there.
Is that when you're having sex with anyone, or is that just like really good, connected, ecstatic sex?
What's the difference? I ever since I first hooked up with a guy in a bar in Fort Collins, Colorado in 1997, I've been having ecstatic sexual experiences. I remember I felt like I was cutting backflips on the other side of the moon, and the guy I was with went, "Hey dude, I have neighbors." So it was the first time I realized, oh, finally I found somebody to do this with. I don't have to be alone in my closet. I had a walk-in closet, and I would literally jack off in front of the mirror. And finally I made it to a gay bar, met this man, and he said, you got to chill out a little bit and not be so ecstatic. I have neighbors. So it took another 10 or 15 years to find people who didn't care.
Yeah.
Brad, how many videos do you think we've worked on together?
I'm estimating about 50.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you've been in some of them too, a handful of them.
I have, and I just want to give just one little piece of information that the reason I'm sweating right now is not just because I've been in so many hot videos and that I've been watching so many on Himeros, but because there's construction happening around my house and I had to move all the furniture just to be on this interview. So my forehead's breaking out in sweat and I'm just now calming down into this experience. You know, the real life world that surrounds us when we're talking about ecstasy.
Brad, we're all dripping. We're just juicy and dripping. The juices are flowing. Good. Well, so today we're going to get spoiled on two fronts. On one hand, we're spoiled because we have two fabulous instructors to chat with today. And we're also getting spoiled because we're talking about two different videos. And the first one that we're going to dive into is called Spin the Bottle. So I'm just going to set this up for folks at home, especially people that aren't yet Himeros.tv members and might not know what it is. So in January, we filmed in Hawaii. We did a series of videos. And actually, Brad wrote all the concepts for that project. And usually when Brad writes kind of the concept or what it is that we're trying to show in the video or what our intention is, there's kind of this whole like thesis around what we're filming and
the butt play dissertation, for example.
Yes, there is a dissertation. And every time I read them, I feel like I get my doctorate in a different aspect of gay sex. But I really appreciate that, and it shows your enthusiasm. And anyway, but for this video, we kind of decided to leave it a little bit more open-ended because you wanted to talk about, or you wanted to leave room for a tantric principle called tapas and spanda, which makes me think of appetizers and spandex. But that's not.
They're actually related.
Okay, so what is tapas and spanda, and how does it apply to this video?
Well, you know, the idea is so much of what we see in porn is scripted, way over scripted. And if you've ever been on a porn set, which you can check out some of Davy's YouTube material to see what that's like. You know, sometimes it's all about angles and positioning and what are we going to do next. So the idea was, what if you get porn stars together and we don't really have any idea what's going to happen next? So we had the luxury of filming 11 videos, and we decided that the 12th video was going to be reserved for something called spanda, which comes from the Sanskrit language. Tantra is a tradition that originated in India, and some say before that it came from other places. It's really an ancient practice, an ancient system. So a lot of the words come from Sanskrit, and without going into that, the word spanda is actually related to spandex. And it actually is related. It's related to expansion because if we just go with our old habit and do what we always do, we're not likely to experience anything new. So if we want to experience something new, we kind of put certain parameters around what we're doing that allows, it's kind of like a pressure cooker. It's kind of like putting a cap, hence the word tapas, top, you know, a covering. You're putting a little bit of a covering on the pressure cooker so you can build energy. And that's what we experimented with in Hawaii. So it was the first time we had done such an experiment without actually scripting a video. The idea was we're filming for 2 or 3 days, and all of these models and directors and Davey and I are going to be together, and we're just going to cook up an idea and put it in the pressure cooker. So the idea that emerged was pretty exciting and pretty fun, although I will admit it was the first time we had done it, and we have more up our sleeve for the near future that's likely to involve something even more edgy.
Yeah, okay, so the container is, the tapa container is that we're in Hawaii doing the shoot with these models and this crew, and we have kind of this day that we're filming this video. Those are kind of the parameters. And then the spanda is the creativity of whatever it is that we decide to film, right?
Yeah.
Do you remember when we did the shoot? I was trying to remember this when I was writing the blog post about the video. I couldn't quite remember why we decided on the idea of spin the bottle. Like, did that just kind of spontaneously come to us, or
It was quite spontaneous. Yeah.
it's just an ejaculation of an idea just kind of shot out?
Well, I think it kind of bubbled up, like that unexpected cum shot in the video that was filmed in Sao Paulo.
Yeah.
It's called Tied Up Part 2, right?
Yeah.
You know how that guy's cum shot just kind of bubbled up out of his dick, and then it spurted afterwards. It's like a triple barrel cum shot. You got to watch the video again. It's Tied Up Part 2 from Sao Paulo, Brazil. So what happened is, in a similar way, you build energy until you just can't stand it anymore, and something comes out. And the tapas is the fact that we have a certain time set aside to do it. We have the cameras ready. We're all well fed. All of our bodies are taken care of, and we're available to show up and be like an instrument to just be inspired.
So, Finn,
is that answering your question yet?
Yeah, it does.
Okay,
And
awesome.
Finn, this is something I want to ask you about. My recollection of us working on this particular video was that I love the models that we filmed with. They were amazing. They were really sweet. But I remember that when we asked them, okay, the game was you play spin the bottle lands on someone, and then that person has to ask for something that they want.
Right.
So it's about like getting in touch with your desires and then speaking those desires. And when we asked people what they wanted in this video, and I think in other instances too on the shoot, it was like the guys had a really hard time saying what it is that they wanted. And when you work on like workshops, or when you're working with gay men, is that something that you see a lot, that like sometimes people don't even know what it is that they want, or they're not in touch with that?
Yes, all the time, myself included. I mean, as I got into this pathway, it was like this area of my body, even the muscles I couldn't really activate my neck muscle as I could as I started to open up this area. And men will tell me, like, I don't know how to talk about my desires with my partner, or they feel really a lot of fear about it, and they're afraid they're going to get rejected, or they've just been kind of going through the motions of routine sex, and they don't know what it is that they authentically want sometimes, because they've maybe never let go of these projections that are not necessarily really them.
So how do you help a guy get like in touch with what it is that he wants?
Well, and Matt and I in workshops do little experiments with them where they have to feel their turn on and get aroused with other men. And we've talked about the flavors of desire before, where there's like a certain kind of sex that like the bed's shaking and like falling apart, and you're just like animals fucking, and that's like your root. And then, there's a kind of sex that's just all about receiving and pleasure, and dilate your emotional self, to receive and give. And then there's a kind of sex that's like boundaries, and so on and so forth, all the way up to the heart, where we have just like lovemaking and ethereal connection. And men and all people really, we're like, some areas we're really strong at, and some areas we're kind of a little timid about. So we'll put guys into these groups where they play with these different notes of their desire and like feel it in their bodies, and start like dancing that way and grinding that way and getting really turned on with each other. And then they get to experience in their own bodies, like, oh, like I was a little scared to go here, or I felt really in my zone right here in this kind of desire. And then they can kind of see from that, like, oh, well, when I'm with my boyfriend, I experienced this particular dynamic, or like some sort of block in that. And I have guys all the time that they'll play with those four different notes and walk away understanding a little bit more about how to like express more dynamically in their sexuality. And then they can talk about it because they have some sort of vocabulary to talk about those things.
Brad, when you're like working with guys, like when you show up for a session, and if it's, an instance where you look at the guy and you say, well, what is it that you want? What is it that you desire? I mean, is it ever difficult for those men to tell you what it is that they want?
No. Well, the reality is, before someone shows up for a session, we've talked about that on the phone. So
they have like a gateway and like sort of a safety that they've established with you.
Totally. Yeah. Out. So I guess I've kind of honed that down to I hesitate to call it a science, but it's like I quickly like to ask men that questions that help them access their excitement. I feel like if men can access excitement so much that they may even get a hard on when they're on the phone talking to me, then it's very easy to get in touch with desire. It's one reason I actually prefer working one-on-one with people, because when two people are really excited, even through what they're saying to each other, there's immediate access to the body. It's no longer in the mind. And I also write a lot to inspire men to think about what they want. So by the time I actually talk to someone about getting together for a session or tantric lovemaking exploration, they've already decided what it is they're really interested in. It kind of helps to give people options of what's possible. Yeah, well, it's not quite like Amsterdam quite yet. It's more like it's food for thought. So if you read an article I write about what does it mean to be whole body ecstatic, how is whole body ecstasy different than genital expression, and someone reads that and parts of it resonate, they'll tell me, well, I really loved your article about how to experience ecstasy in your whole body. And then I'll ask them, well, what specifically inspired you? And they'll tell me, well, I really liked the part about doing everything you can first off to get as excited as hell, and then to start being in touch with your breath. So if it begins with excitement, then I think we've really got some rich meat.
Yeah.
I'd like to hear more from Finn about this. I didn't get a chance to say in my sweaty hurriedness in the beginning how much I really admire and appreciate his work in the world. I love the way he presents his website. I'm really excited by what he's teaching. Plus, he's just so fucking cute. He's dynamic. I've watched his podcast. I just love the way that you express yourself. And I would love to know, well, if Davey were to ask you the same question he asked me, whatever it was, which I forgot in my slew of words, what your answer might be.
Well, thank you for that. Yeah, I feel very touched. Yeah, thank you for listening and for seeing. Davey, can you ask me the question again so I can really hone my thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, something that came up for me when Brad was talking was that I think if someone's reaching out to like a tantric, like a sacred intimate or a tantric instructor, like they're probably already kind of starting on this journey where maybe they are more connected with what they want and their desires. And I think as someone who tends to date guys that are a bit younger than myself, guys that are in their 20s, maybe they're really kind of just starting out on their journey. I mean, if you were to ask me what I wanted when I was 20, I wouldn't have known, I would have.
Yeah, I would have lied.
Yeah. And I'm like, whatever. I like anything. I'm open to whatever. Let's make out.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know. Is that just something that we learn as we get older?
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, I hope we do. I know that many people do. And if we have experience like a recurring pain or a recurring discomfort or a recurring kind of relationship that we're like, oh God, I always date these kind of guys. It's like, well, okay, let's slow down and why? Like what's underneath that? And in the process of self-discovery, and just time and awareness, we do acquire that. And I think you're right too. I think maybe what some, the work that we're doing, like all of us, it's kind of self-selected in a way that like if someone's reaching out for help from a tantric coach, I would agree too. Like Matt, the guy that I work with, he does have a lot of clients that work out there, reach out to him for sacred spot massage and more intimate work than I provide with people. But people kind of know what I'm about and what I'm going through and what I'm sharing of my own process. So they're kind of reaching out to me for that, so.
Yeah. No, that
guys
makes
are
sense.
coming saying like, I have clients routinely that say at some version of this story where it's like, well, with my boyfriend, I feel really safe to be like the top. And then I feel really scared to show him how much I love to bottom. And so I really fantasize about other men to do that with, or I only like I'll only like let me feel that part of myself to porn, and then like I'll just kind of dominate my boyfriend, and can identify a sense of fear in them, you know, to really let go with a man, because it's like, wow, I'm letting this man in to see me. I think a lot of gay guys are just like so scared to let someone in.
So I'm trying to kind of synthesize what you and Brad are saying, and what I'm hearing is, well, first of all, there's two parts of this. It's like getting in touch with what you want, and then expressing that to someone else. And it sounds like what tends to make that easier is having a safe space that you've created a safe space where you can kind of have this conversation, that you're with someone where there's some sort of established connection or trust, that you have to kind of release some of the fear of judgment.
Which is really all about self-love, you know, like that, ultimately, I think it's all about loving yourself more when you get all the way down to the bottom level.
Yeah.
I have a confession.
Go.
Yes.
I masturbated every day for 9 years before I ever had sex with anyone. I started when I was 14 after I won the science fair. I was really excited. I went home and jacked off.
Did you come like with actual semen, or was it like a dry orgasm?
My first cum shot was after I won the science fair.
Wow.
I was a total nerd, and I spent a lot of time alone, and I would go to the library and jack off while I was researching my stuff for my science project on Saturday. I mean, I did not have a sex life. But what happened was when I was 22 and finally hooked up with a guy in Alaska, I knew exactly what I wanted. I knew exactly what I wanted, and I told him, I'm like, he's like, why do you, he came over to my little cabin in the woods, and I had water heating on the stove, and he said, why do you have water heating? And I said, well, because I want to strip to our underwear, and I want to pour warm water all over our crotches and wet our underwear down. And then I want to wrestle with you and kiss and make out and rub cocks together till we shoot a deluge of cum all over each other. I mean, I had waited
That's awesome.
9 years to say this. And it came out in Alaska, and we must have come 4 times. I mean, my God, I was 22 years old, and I had waited all that time.
And it's so hot.
In touch with yourself.
Like 14 to 22, that's 8 years. It was 1 year later when I was 23 that I did that every 2 or 3 times a week. In Fort Collins, Colorado, I would go out and find someone and tell them exactly what I wanted. Some people would say no. But usually by the first, second, or third guy in the bar, when I said, I want to go home, strip naked with you, make out, and just kiss you and jack off together, they would go, yeah, and we would leave.
Yeah, it is hot. I mean, I think about how many times on Grindr where I'm talking to a guy and I say, you know, what are you into, or what do you want? And they just kind of say, oh, whatever, like I'm open to whatever. But then those instances where the guy does say, this is what I want. And even if I'm not turned on by all of those things, I'm turned on by his like willingness to communicate that. And even if some of those things aren't at the top of my list, I kind of want to do a lot of them anyway, because
it's the authenticity, right?
Yeah.
Because when someone says like, I don't know, whatever, you're like, okay, well, he's not really being fully open with me because I know my own dirty thoughts, and that's just like a real umbrella statement. And I want to know what someone's really like thinking about, what they're like kind of scared to.
I feel like I'm gonna come on a sweaty jock strap and stick it in your face. Like, tell me what it is. And when we filmed this video, we each had to ask for what we wanted, and I knew exactly what I wanted, which was to see Max suck his own dick. So,
you know what? That was awesome. I didn't expect that.
Yeah. Well, he said he could, and I was like, all right, well, don't put that out there if you know, if you don't want us to explore it. How could we not?
Yeah.
All right. So getting back to Tapas and Sponda, I know we have to move on to the other video, but when I uploaded this video, it was interesting, the response from the audience, which I think some people were disappointed that the video wasn't more explicit. I mean, there's nudity in it, and it's very hot, and it's fun. But I think my regret would be that like that we didn't we kind of showed this idea of tapas and spanda, but we didn't necessarily show people how they could use it in their own life. We applied it to this video, but Brad, how can people use tapas and spanda like in their own sex life and when they go out into the world?
Thank you so much for asking. I'm so glad that you formulated that question because, I mean, the video was an experiment. It was the last video we filmed after 12 videos with a nuclear bomb threat on the first day, okay?
That's true.
Wow.
First day, they said a bomb was
tapas.
about to hit Hawaii and we should all take shelter before we filmed the muscle worship video.
Yep, that's true.
I'm like, by the end of it, I think the director had this idea, well, maybe the best way to follow the flow here and the spontaneity is to do what we would naturally do, which is sit in chairs, talk about what we've experienced. So it's not going to be the hottest, most explicit erotic video, but it gives an audience a chance to see what people who just film their own sex videos do when they're done. I mean, it's a glimpse, and it's kind of the foreshadowing of all the wonderful documentary material that Davey's about to do. It's a foreshadowing that along with all the ecstasy, the glee, the hot fucking and cock sucking and hot 69, there's also this moment where guys are just really sweet with each other and you can see they actually relate as human beings. So I would recommend taking this video as one piece in a whole picture. You know, the reason these videos are short is, first of all, most people in the world now don't have long attention spans. And secondly, each little video is a vignette. And what you have is this vast library that's like a multifaceted diamond. And this is just one little piece that helps that diamond sparkle. It's not the whole picture. But if you watch this and then you watch the next video and the one before, then you can assemble a full picture. You know, one day I'd like to see some of them remixed and lined up as a 60-minute video. And then, yeah, we can't handle guys fucking each other up the ass continuously like jackrabbits for 60 minutes. You know what I mean? We need some downtime, and that's what this video is going to be for. That's what I'm talking about.
So yeah, that's really that's great. I mean, that's really well said, and you're right. It is just one facet of many, but really for that principle of tapas and the container and the spontaneity.
You asked me a question, right?
Yeah.
I was kind of apologizing for the video not being explicit enough, but also saying, well, it is part of a long series and it's a very important piece.
Yes.
So you're going to see more explicit tapas and spanda in future videos, and we're already working on that in beautiful ways. In terms of day-to-day life, the best example of tapas and spanda and sex is what would happen if you deliberately refrain from ejaculating for a while. One reason that so many people in the world actually think Tantra is about sex without ejaculation, that's what most people think Tantra is. They're like, oh yeah, that's when you have sex, but you don't come and you raise your energy through your whole body. The reason people think that is the most common tapas in Tantra is refraining from ejaculating. Why? Well, most people assume when you have sex, you're going to shoot a load. That's an assumption. Like you got to finish. In most languages, the word for orgasm is similar to the word for finish. Like in Russian, it's konchat. It means to finish, you know. So if you don't come, you're not finished, right? That's the perception that we've bought into. And Tantra introduces us to a new world of possibilities. What if just for 15 minutes, rather than blowing your load, no matter how hot it is, you just lie together still and let yourself fucking throb? And my teacher compares it to, like, what if you're sitting on the couch at night and you really want to eat that big old tub of ice cream? And you do it every Tuesday. But tonight you're going to go, well, what would happen if I don't eat ice cream and I just sit here and breathe? Then maybe new inspiration will come to me. Maybe I'll actually get out of the house. Maybe I'll write a good story, or I'll really go see a good movie, or I'll go out and fuck really hot with my boyfriend instead of eating ice cream. So the same thing applies when you're having sex. If there's something you absolutely have to do or it's not going to be real for you, just once in a while, see what it's like if you don't do that thing. Like, I love to scream when I'm having sex. I love to say nasty words. And one thing I've done with my lovers sometimes actually involuntarily is we had to be quiet. We had to be quiet because we were visiting my sister at Christmas, you know, and our bed is in the living room, and there's only a curtain dividing us from the next room where my family's visiting, and we're in bed, but we're excited. So we knew we couldn't make any noise. So it wasn't even a choice. We could not make fuck noises in the room next to my family. It just wasn't going to work. So we didn't make any noise. We had super hot sex completely silently. We're used to making so much noise that all the neighbors know, and luckily my neighbors don't seem to care. But that time we were quiet and we had the best sex. So our tapas was refraining from making a lot of noise, and our spanda was the creativity, the joy, the passion that we shared was actually incomparable to many of the other times we've made love. I mean, it was unique. I hope that answers the question. You know, I love to answer questions like this, and I hope I left enough time for the other exciting video.
Yeah, no, that's great. So it's like a little. You had an experiment. You had a little experiment with your boyfriend.
One of many, but that's true. Another principle of Tantra is everything is an experiment, and there's no such thing as failure. You know, people are like, you know, I just can't live up to my lover's expectations. I'm so afraid that I'm going to fail. I'm so afraid I'm not going to get hard and stay hard. I'm so afraid I'm not going to be able to take his big dick up my ass, and then I'll be a total failure. But if you approach everything as if it's an experiment, there's no failure. There's only learning. And if his big dick is pressed up against your ass and it doesn't feel so good, that's a good opportunity to go, I really would love your big dick up my ass. And right now, I think I'd rather you massage my butt for a while with some good lube and play with my prostate until I get a little warmed up. And then you may discover that the prostate pleasure was even more fun than the big dick because you tried a new experiment. Experiments only work if you observe what happens and collect information, you know. Yeah. And then if it doesn't work, don't do it the next time. Try something new, you know.
And my experiment was sucking that big dick, and I lost my voice. That was the result that came from that. So.
Thank God you still have enough voice, though. It sounds really sexy.
Thank you, Brad. All right. So I want to quickly just get to the other video, and the other video is the first part in a 4-part series. So we don't have to spend a lot of time on it today, since there will be much more of it to come. But the video is called, I believe it's called Roleplay Part 1, The Seduction. And it features 3 models, DeAndre, Cody, and Alan Silver. And in the video, the DeAndre and Cody are playing like as if they're these like longtime childhood friends, and they're perving over this dirty video that one of them found of their stepdad. I think it's obvious for people that are watching that it's kind of just a little role-playing situation, that it's a scene that they've set up. But I think what is apparent when you're watching it, because DeAndre and Cody have such great chemistry, but might not be known to the viewers, is that in real life, DeAndre and Cody are partners. And it's the first time we filmed a video that has, well, no, actually, I guess, Brad, we filmed a video with you and your boyfriend. But it's one of the few instances where the 2 models in the video were actually partners in real life. So I'm curious what you guys thought of the video. If you have any thoughts, things that stood out, the floor is yours.
I love the video. I was surprised too. I don't think I've seen content that had that elaborate of a storyline thus far that was implied or explicit in the film. So I was really, really excited about that and could relate to, especially when he was opening up the scene, smelling the underwear and jacking off. I mean, it was kind of the way that I found my way into honesty about liking guys when I was younger. So it just was like, oh, there's this part of me that can totally relate to wanting my best friend so bad and smelling his underwear and going through his laundry.
Yeah,
I still do that to my partner, actually.
How was it for you, Brad?
Well, I was blown away by this video. I think it's just an incredibly beautiful piece of artistry. I really love Travis Matthews and the expression he brings through in erotica.
That was the director for the film.
Yeah. At first I thought it was filmed in London, and then I was like, oh, one guy's in London. Oh, but wait, that guy's in San Francisco. And then I was really excited to see that it was all being filmed in San Francisco. And my sweet friend Alan Silver, who is a sacred intimate and a wonderful hot daddy porn star, showed up in the video. And that was a nice surprise because I didn't know what was coming next. One thing I really loved, especially about the video, was how realistic it was, the way that the first guy that you hear in the video, his voice, actually, I think it's his voice through the whole video. The one model's the only one speaking, right?
Yeah.
I felt it was really realistic. Like, it didn't feel scripted. It didn't feel like he was reading. It felt like it was somebody really telling something that had meaning to me, to him, and to all of us. And I felt like his words were like pure poetry. Like every word that came out of him was like fuck bliss, erotic, euphoric poetry. And I don't hear enough men speaking erotic poetry where you integrate all the magic and the beauty of a fuck and weave it together with words. And then I get to see these beautiful pictures, these beautiful men. I'm looking forward to a lot more.
Yeah. So for people at home, if you go to himeros.tv, even if you're not a member, you can still see a free preview for that video. We just left it as the first minute of the video, so you can watch the first 60 seconds or so of it. And as Brad mentioned, this was directed by Travis Matthews, who's done a lot of really beautiful films for us, and he's also done a lot of more mainstream filmmaking. And he said that this series in particular, part 4 of the series, was the hottest thing he's ever filmed. And so I think it might culminate in some sort of orgy at the end, but we'll just have to stay tuned for all that. So awesome. I do have a few questions from people at home that they sent in. And if you guys at home do have any questions, feel free to email me them at davey@daveywavy.tv. Okay, so the first...
And you'll forward them to Dear Abby, right?
Yeah. This bitch. Okay, so question number 1 is, there's such a big hookup culture in the gay community, and a lot of hookup sex that I have doesn't feel connected. You've often said on this podcast that you can have a connected hookup, but how do you do that with a question mark and an exclamation mark?
The first thing that comes to my mind is being more connected in the self, going into those experiences, like bring more of yourself to the hookup. It can create a dynamic sometimes where it's narrowing the channel of like what we're like actually outputting or what we're like bringing in. If we just bring all of ourselves to it, and any that we're holding back, we'll open it up. Yeah.
I actually wrote in the margins next to that question, I wrote, connected sex starts with you. That if it's connection that you want in your hookup, bring that connection to your hookup.
Bring all the parts of yourself that you can.
Yeah. And I'm not a tantric coach or instructor, but it just seems to me that if that's what you want, then be present and show up to the hookup, and don't be on drugs, and make eye contact and communicate with them and ask them what they want, and touch them a little bit more slowly, and don't just focus on coming. There's a lot of things that you can do in that hookup that are going to change the dynamic.
I have a suggestion if we have time.
Yeah.
So I think there are some, can you hear me okay?
You sound great.
Okay. So I think there are some benefits to having been around before there were apps and before there were even hookup sites. I mean, I'm not that old, but I didn't even use those hookup sites for the first several years they were around, because I was having so much fun meeting guys on the beach, at the bar. And I think the best suggestion I could give is talk to the person before you get together, or find a way to communicate what really excites you, rather than wait until you greet the stranger at your door. It really helps. It's always helped me to actually talk to the person on the phone. I mean, maybe that sounds really old school, but here's what I do. I type a little message, and if the person responds, I go, would you like to talk for a minute? And if they really want to get together with me, they'll say yes. Then we call each other, and I say, I was really excited by your picture. I'm really imagining that we could have a really hot time. We're really going to have a fuckload of fun. I feel it. And then generally, if I express excitement, he's going to respond with excitement.
Mm-hmm.
And by the time we actually get together, we know that we're in for some excitement and fun. I mean, assuming that the pictures are accurate, it really helps to be realistic in your profile. Put a picture that's really you at the current age, or at least in the last 2 years, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, meet them before you meet them.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Totally.
All right, question number 2. I want to know what advice you'd have for a gay guy who is over 70 and wanting to have good sex, and good is in all capital letters. So a gay elder that wants, just like everyone else, good sex.
Mm-hmm.
What advice would you have? Brad, I pulled this question today in particular because I know one of your closest friends and a lover of yours is someone who we filmed, which is Norm, who I saw you kind of jokingly referred to as the world's oldest porn star.
No,
because he was in one of our videos, and he's 83.
84. He's aged since the video.
He's 84. Yeah, I mean, and he literally says in the video, 88, I think, because he was 83. He says, 83 years old, I'm having the best sex of my life. What do you think the secret is to good sex as you get older?
Well, I'm really responding right out of my heart here the best I can. And I would say the first secret is be realistic.
Mm-hmm.
So realistic means, what's your sex drive like? Do you feel that you have a strong sex drive? If you have a strong sex drive and you're often hard and erect by yourself, or when you wake up in the morning, probably you would have a lot of exciting, erotic fun with another man with a big hard dick. If you're not feeling so sexually motivated, the sexual desire isn't coming from your body and maybe coming from your mind. Like, I should be having more sex. I need to make up for lost time. So my suggestion in that case would be maybe make a little substitution of the word sex, or an expansion of what that means to you and what's realistic. So it might mean, I really want to be immersed in erotic energy more. So maybe if you're not feeling like, you know, being a big fuck stud on the day that you hook up with someone, maybe you hook up with someone who really loves to jack off in your face, somebody that really excites you visually, somebody that you can enjoy being present with regardless of what your cock's doing. Because one thing that stops 71-year-old men or 84-year-old men or 42-year-old men from having sex is a fear that they're not going to get hard, stay hard, perform all the functions on the checklist. You got to throw away the fucking checklist and make your own list. What really excites me is, it might not depend on you. It might be you want to be with a lover that really gets excited about being excited in front of you, gets excited about dancing for you, gets excited about sitting on your fucking face. They may get really excited about tying you up and making you helpless and beg. There's so much excitement available that is not linked to your hard on, who's fucking, whether you can take it up the ass.
Amen.
All right, our final question
Is
is
a moment of silence for that.
just let it
Reverence.
I know I feel bad just kind of rushing through these questions, but I know we're coming up against the clock, and I really want to get to this last one, which is what do you do when there's a mismatch in horniness levels between partners? And Finn, I know this is something that you encounter quite a bit in your work.
Yeah, and I've had in my own relationships before. It can be all kinds of things, because it really could be biological tendency, like someone's legitimately hornier than the other, or it could be, and it's often, like an emotional dynamic that's being created between the partner, where distance needs to be created, and then someone wants each other. And in my own personal relationships, I would have a lot of anxiety and like pressure, and then that doesn't make the other partner want to do it, or maybe we're, you know, not connected somewhere else in our relationship, and then it shows up in the bedroom. So I would say, you know, get clear if it's like biological, or if it's like some emotional dynamic that is being created between you two, and it could be an opportunity to go deeper with each other. And that actually produces way hot sex, when you get to go deeper with someone emotionally and break through. Or so it could be biological. Go ahead.
When you say go deeper, you mean like like really have an honest conversation with each other about it.
Without blame. Yeah. Without being like, you won't give me what I want. It's more like taking full ownership, because that other person, we can't make somebody else like fit our psychological projections, and if they don't want to walk into that space. So we have to own that part ourselves, and that can be a really healing event, which does produce way hot sex as a result.
Amazing. Well, I would love to have this conversation forever. You guys have been so so knowledgeable and wonderful and wise, and I really appreciate having both of you here together. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
Super fun.
Next week, we are going to be talking about pup play. So in the meantime, make sure you join us on himeros.tv. It's HIMEROS.tv. And remember, if you go to himeros.tv/pod, POD, you can save 20% on your membership. So thank you guys for being here. Thank you for tuning in. And where can people get more of either of you? What are your websites?
Finndeerhart.com, FINNDERHART.com.
And my website is bradamberhart.com. That's Brad, AMBERHEART.com. I would love to say more to the man who asked that question about growing older. I really would.
Well,
I know, reach out.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you guys for tuning in. And as always, more to come.
Thank you.